All right, good evening, everybody. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Sean Callan.
Here.
Julie Chetney.
Here.
Tom Chiappa.
Here.
David Crisafulli. Here. Jim McKenzie's here. Kristen Norfleet.
Here.
Sean Onmock.
Here.
And Michael Pastel. All right, stand for the pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so at this point, I would like to open our budget meeting and begin with Dr. Kilmer's presentation.
Good evening, all. So this is going to be a repeat of the presentation that I actually did back on April 16th. Address any additional questions that you or the public has as we anticipate the election on May 21st. So again, just a brief summary of our process. You know, we started way back in December and January talking about the budget, developing budget guidelines, the areas in which we felt that a budget needs to be focused. And again, when we're looking at our guidelines, we are always hopeful that it's flexible, right? That it's financially sound, that it provides us the cash on hand to address any of the needs of the district, and then of course, that it's adaptive to address any of those upcoming needs or unexpected needs that we might have. Our priorities were developed really based on what we heard from the community from the get-go. From my first day in this district, and this actually before I was hired, when we're talking about my interview process, things that I heard were maintaining program, safety and security, mental, social, and emotional health. Those really sum up the priorities in which the budget focuses back on. And I think we've done a nice job of really adding to those areas. And I think we've done a nice job of honoring those priorities of the district. We've talked about this a couple of times. The administrative portion of the budget, you do see a slight decline. I hadn't mentioned this previously, but just as a reminder, one of the big reasons we see a decline in the administrative budget is there's actually the elimination of the assistant director of business and finance that had been in the previous year's budget. That person left, we didn't fill it. We are not going to fill it moving forward. So that's one of the primary reasons why you see that decline. In addition, there were some obligations to past superintendents that have been exhausted. And so that is no longer part of that budget line as well. And so that's why we see that decline. Our capital budget, again, is pretty stagnant except for the one line. And again, it's a hefty line, that 1.5 million. Remember, that's a band payment, the bond anticipatory note, which is a typical process when we're talking about our facilities projects, okay? So that was expected. It is the normal course of business, but it does show as a high increase from year to year. Our program summary, this is the area where we did see some differences. And I'll talk about this a couple of times, but I'll focus in on those higher areas. So again, you notice counseling looks like it's up pretty dramatically. And then you also see psychological services, psychologist services, that also looks like it's up. We didn't go on a hiring spree from year to year. That's indicative of shifting positions that were federally funded from the COVID grants back to the general fund. So I think I have mentioned this numerous times, but we had 27 positions, all funded through the federal COVID grants. Again, 27 positions. That was 5 counselors, 4 special education teachers, a psychologist, and then numerous teaching assistants. We wanted to ensure that we were able to maintain program. They were focused on the mental and emotional health of our students, and we really prioritized that. And thankfully, we were able to maintain those positions, unlike a number of districts not only in Oswego County, but Onondaga County, who are struggling to maintain those positions from year to year as a result of those loss of federal funds. The benefit summary, we have talked about this, a hefty portion of our budget is always going to be connected in benefits. We did talk about the difference, especially in our medical insurance. As we are self-insured, we did see a bump in the number of claims that we paid out the last couple of years, and we anticipate hopefully that not continuing at that rate, but we wanted to ensure that we were budgeting appropriately so that I didn't have to come to you in the spring of '25 and say, we've had to overspend when we're looking at medical insurance. And so Pete and I have worked hard at trying to address that. So again, our three-part budget, we've talked about this from the very, very beginning. Our goal has been from the beginning to keep capital at or below 15%, administrative at or below 10%, and our program, the area in which touches children most directly, the largest piece of the pie, at 75% or higher. And this budget does this. Again, I've shown this previously. The history of Oswego budgets has also addressed that. They have done, over the last 5 years, an excellent job of trying to maintain that proportionality to ensure that our students are getting the most when we're talking about our budget. Our revenue, again, we've talked a great deal about when we're planning for any given school budget, we're not only thinking about the next year, but we're also thinking about the next 5 years. We are a revenue-based system, and we have very limited control over our revenue. The only control that we have is our tax levy. But when you look at tax levy in proportion to the rest of the revenue, it's actually a very small part. So about 51% of the 24-25 budget is actually from state aid. About 25% is from pilots and what we call other sources. And then about 24% is the tax levy. And so we do have relatively limited ability to expand or contract, if you will, when we run into issues when it comes to the budget. I am concerned about the future. I do expect the state to come up with a new foundation formula. And we could absolutely see a different foundation formula for next year. And so I don't know what that means for us when we're looking at the largest portion of our revenue source. And so we designed a budget that sets us up for success for not only next year and highlights the priorities for next year, but also sets the stage for us to weather storms in the future. And so I think that's a really important piece to remember when we're talking about the development of any school budget. We continue to have healthy and appropriate reserves, again, to help us weather those storms should we face them. I did mention to you a few meetings ago about the possibility of us establishing a medical reserve or an insurance reserve to help us address those swings and claims that we might see since we're self-insured. And so that's a conversation that we should continue to have and possibly add for the 24-25 school year. So now just kind of focusing on what we've added for this year's budget. We've added a capital outlay. We have not historically done capital outlay projects. Capital outlays allow us to leverage state aid, but also allow us to do some facility work. We can do up to $100,000 of capital outlay and get 100% of that aided in the next year. Anything past $100,000, we still get aid on, but then it's based over 15 years, okay? So next year, we're gonna start off with $100,000 and we're gonna target Riley Elementary School. A capital outlay has to target a specific building. It's only one building. It can't be district-wide. It has to be building-specific. And there we focused and targeted safety and security upgrades. in particular, some security cameras and doors. There are a number of doors that have significant rusting. I mean, you can see right through a couple of doors. I can see daylight through some of the frames in some of them as well, and they just don't operate appropriately. So we're gonna try to take care of those in the capital outlay project. Again, it allows us to address facilities needs without having to go to a full referendum, and it's right out of the budget. I would like us to, in the future, slowly increase what we're doing for capital outlays. I would like us to be doing capital work every year and addressing those pop-up needs that maybe can't wait for a larger capital project. We want to slowly ramp that up to ensure that it's not having a negative impact on the overall budget. And so we just want to be mindful about how we ramp that up and time it so the aid is helping us as well. I've talked to John Bick from Fiscal Advisors to kind of help and advise us as to what's the best way for us to try to ramp that up over the next 3 to 5 years. So what are we asking for? So we are asking for a tax levy increase of 3.17%. That's about $850,000. That 3.17% is at or below the tax cap. Again, we hear all the time about a 2% tax cap. It's not 2%. There is a formula. I've joked with some of the teacher groups that I've met with to review the budget with them that Mr. Cloutier would be more than happy to sit with them if they have an hour to go through the formula, because I think that's how long it actually takes to go through the formula, because it is pretty complicated. But it is something that we wanted to ensure that, one, we were being responsible. We did not want to go over the cap, but also wanted to make sure that we were moving a budget forward that addressed all of the priorities that we had. I've talked about this a couple of times, but I do think this graphic is an important one to remember, and I hope our community sees this as well. The district has done an excellent job of being very mindful of the burden placed on our taxpayers. And so if we just look at just the last 3 years, 0%, 0%, and slightly over 1%. But if we watch inflation, inflation far exceeded that. And then what we could actually go to, what the actual tax cap was, far exceeded what the district did. And so the district has been and will continue to be fiscally responsible. We'll not just go to the tax cap just for the sake of going to a tax cap. We'll only do so if there is need and it's student need. It's focused, again, back on students. What happens if our budget is not successful? So you as a board have two options. Option one is we can put the same budget out, or we can tweak the budget, but again, we can put another budget in front of the voters. The second is immediately go to a contingency. If it fails, if you choose to go forward with a second budget and it fails again, that is an automatic contingency. And what does contingency mean? It means a 0% tax levy change. So that would be a loss of revenue of a little over $100,000 or $850,000 for us. But what it also does, it really restricts us in a couple of areas. The one area that I think people would notice most is that it really restricts our facility use. And that if anyone wants to use the facility, there can be absolutely no cost to the taxpayer. So we would have to bill them for every possible thing that could be perceived as a cost to the taxpayer. And so that's often very prohibitive. But it is something that is just important to think about. So our fast facts of the budget, we are looking at, again, staying within the property tax cap. It is a 3.17% increase. It maintains our commitment to our social and emotional well-being of our students, increases number of SROs to 6. So again, we're adding 2 additional SROs. Right now we have 2 at the high school, 1 at the middle school, and one shared among the 5 elementary schools. We will add 2 additional to try to help address the issues within the elementary school. Ben Miller, who is our primary person for the elementary schools, is fantastic, does an incredible job, but he is pulled in thousands of directions every day. And he does serve our children and our families so well. We'll be able to serve our children and families even better with the addition of 2 more. I did speak with Chief Katie, and one thing that a district never wants to do is add positions and then not have any candidates that would be interested. Based on my conversation with Chief, he does feel as though if we are able to add them, he will be able to fill those roles. And so I think that's a really important piece to this. Continuing with the emotional well-being of our students, I am looking to add an additional district psychologist and a social worker, again, to service our students' needs from pre-K through 12th grade. And then, of course, it invests in our facilities upgrades. And again, just to summarize one more time, this budget maintains programming focused on those 27 positions that were all funded based on federal grants, COVID grants, 17 TAs, 5 counselors, 4 special education teachers, and 1 school psychologist are all maintained in this budget. And I'm proud that we were able to do that. Just to review our propositions for this year, there's the budget proposition. The second proposition is the ex officio student member that has to go to the public every other year. The public doesn't vote on who the student is, but rather that the seat can be created. It's been a long-standing tradition here in Oswego, and I'm excited and quite sure that the voters will see the value in having a student sit at the table. Remember, we do have the purchase of 9 buses. That's part of our replacement plan. The total cost for 9 buses is a little less than $1.5 million. But when you take into consideration trade-in value and state aid, the actual cost to the district per year is right around that $36,000, $37,000 annually when we're talking about transportation, those increases. And then the last 2 are focused on our public library, the levy, and then also the trustees. And then, of course, we have 2 members of the Board of Education seats that are up, and we have 2 individuals running. Don't forget to go out and vote, May 21st. The budget newsletter has gone to print and will be hitting mailboxes as soon as we get those back from the printers. Any questions?
Thank you, Dr. Kilmer. And I will close our budget meeting portion of this overall meeting. Next on the agenda is floor to the public, of which nobody has signed up. So we've moved on to acknowledgements with Kristen.
Thank you. We're going to start this meeting at Oswego Middle School, where it's Autism Awareness Month. To celebrate Autism Awareness Month, the students in Mrs. Odell's class assembled and distributed M&M treat bags as a thank you to the teachers and staff at the middle school who make a difference in recognizing individuals' abilities and not their disabilities. Also at the middle school, they just had their National Junior Honor Society induction on Sunday. It was led by co-advisors, Mrs. Sandy Brown and Ms. Claire Donovan. A quick fun fact for everybody here, Ms. Donovan was in the inaugural class of the National Honor Society when it was started 13 years ago, and she is now serving as a co-advisor. 26 7th grade students were inducted into the Eagles Nest chapter of the National Junior Honor Society. It was a wonderful event. I personally attended it. Moving on to Oswego High School. OHS Kindness Day was on Friday, April 19th. The school hosted former NFL player Leroy Collins as a speaker. Activities were planned by the students of the principal's cabinet in order to bring our school community together. Thank you to the students for planning and to the faculty and staff for supporting this day. This day was sponsored by the Oswego County Prevention Coalition and Texas Roadhouse. Also at the high school, on Monday, April 15th, the Math Honor Society inductions were held. Seniors were recognized and 8 new members were inducted. Congratulations to Lily Allison, Janessa Coronado, Elliot Newell, Christopher Pineda, Liam Scheel, Amalia Sloan, Xavier Vasquez, and Alani White. In addition, 3 students from OHS were recognized for the 4th annual William Barclay Community Service Youth Award on Thursday, May 2nd. This award recognizes outstanding high school students who volunteer to serve and enrich our communities. These are standout students who demonstrate leadership through their service to others. Representing Oswego High School were Maggie O'Leary, Addison Stepien, and Cooper Therian. Congratulations to the 3 of them. Sophia Kropf was selected for the 2024 Youth Leadership Retreat, which is being held on May 7th at City BOCES. This is being hosted by the members of Leadership Oswego County. Congratulations to Sophia for being selected to represent Oswego High School. And I don't see it included in here, but Oswego High School also had National Honor Society inductions on Sunday. Moving to Minetto. Minetto's Furry Friends. Our Minetto first graders enjoyed reading with their paws of CNY Furry Friends. Once a month, Gus, Sadie, Cinderella, and Marcy snuggle up to hear stories and help our students become fluent readers. Also at Minetto, Minetto Dairy Day. Dairy Day celebrations. Several Minetto classrooms engaged in Zoom Dairy Day. This 40-minute live, interactive, and personal virtual tour begins in the calf barns and then zooms across the road to the milking herd, freestall barns, and milking parlor. Our Minetto students adopted newborn calves and named them Moo Moo and Milky Way, as you can see pictured here. The students enjoyed having all of their questions answered also. Next up is Charles E. Riley. CER steps up. Good hearts of the Riley staff. Some of our families lost everything in a recent fire, and the Riley staff banded together to spearhead and coordinate a plan to help our families over break. It was impressive and appreciated. At CER, we strive to build culture. This month, we adapted a version of Connect 4. Staff were all given a card with a character on it, and they had to find the other 3 characters that went with that TV show, band, or superhero group. Once the foursome connected, they came to the office for a prize. Also at Charles E. Riley, one of the kindergarten classes took some time to celebrate National Principals Day. And last but certainly not least, Fitzhugh Park, the reading team. At FPS, we're highlighting our students, reading interventionists, and our kindergarten through 2nd grade teachers. Our teachers are committed to coming up with collaborative and innovative approaches to increasing our student achievement, learning, and data. They have been working together to co-plan and are providing more opportunities for our students to work in small groups on their individualized learning goals. Our students also love working with different teachers and students during team time and celebrating their success. Great job to everyone, and way to go, readers at Fitzhugh Park.
Thank you very much. Board of Education next. Can I get a motion, please, for a memorandum of agreement between the Oswego City School District and the Oswego City Police Department as presented?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Tom. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Kristen. Is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, motion carries. Superintendent's report.
I wanted to comment that, and Kristen already addressed it, but both the Junior Honor Society and the National Honor Society did an excellent job on Sunday. It was a wonderful event, and so happy to honor those students and their success. I did want to publicly thank Mr. Colucci for his help and support in developing the 24-25 budget. It was a long process. Again, someone coming in partway through the year, both he and I, and to be able to put a responsible budget together to maintain the programming for this community, I feel very proud of. One thing I did forget to mention during the public hearing is that we have lots of information on the website. If you go to oswego.org and go to budget, all of the publications are found there. All the presentations that I've done over the last few months are there. There's a nice snapshot of the budget within there as well. And so I do hope people will utilize that if they have any questions. And of course, they can contact either myself or Mr. Clucci, either by phone or email, so that we can try to help and address any questions or concerns that people might have. And so what I would really just ask our community to do is just please go out and vote. Bring a friend, but May 21st, there are 4 polling sites, and be on the lookout for the newsletter. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gilmore. Committee discussion. Is there anything from the audit committee? David?
We're meeting at I think the 20th.
Okay.
Something like that.
So you mean next meeting's the 20th. Thank you. Community relations? No? Okay. Facilities? No. Policy? No. Visitation?
Yes,
Yes.
thank you. We had our visitation at Riley last week. It was a wonderful opportunity to spend a couple hours at Riley. Myself, whose kids went to Kingsford, I had never been in Riley before, so I enjoyed just seeing the building for the first time. We had some great conversations, especially with, I want to shout out not only the principal, who's wonderful there, but also with the school librarian, who talked to us about the library and how she's trying to create a welcoming environment for all of her students. I also want to hit a little bit on what was mentioned in the budget as far as that capital outlay project targeted at Riley. Some of the doors at the school, and we're talking the exterior doors, literally don't close. So if somebody uses them, despite being encouraged not to, they don't close. And so they're open and ajar. And fortunately, there's people moving around the building who notice that and quickly address it. But obviously, we need to get some new doors in there so that we know that all the entrance and exits are in a secure way. I also want to give a shout out to the principal who's created, I think she referred to it as a conference room. It's a super inviting space that she's created, that she's using for everything from team meetings with her staff to if she's hosting, a breakfast or a luncheon to do something nice for her staff. It's really inviting. It's part of some of the new upgraded spaces that were done as part of the capital improvement. And it's a great space for the teachers at Riley to come together and have bonding activities and things like that. I just wanted to thank Riley for being a great host during our visit.
Thank you very much, Kristen. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda, and I'm going to group this all together. So if I can have a motion for items A through I, please. Thank you, Julie. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Sean. Is there any discussion on any of the items A through I? Okay, having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Is anybody opposed? Motion carries. Next up is curriculum. So we have one item here, item A. So if we can have a motion for a new textbook for instructional use as presented, please.
I'll move.
Thank you, Kristen. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Tom. Any discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Personnel, Mr. Syracuse.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to group in personnel under items A and B. I'd like to recognize under item B, we have retirement. Geraldine Griffin is a school bus attendant. She began in the district on April 20th, 2016, and she will be retiring on June 1st this year. So congratulations to her. So items A and B as presented.
Thank you. Is there a motion for A and B?
Make the motion.
Thank you, David. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Sean. Is there any discussion?
I guess I just have a question. The retirement of the bus driver on June 1st, we weren't able to convince her just to give us 2 more weeks to get us through the end of the school year, so we don't have a shortage of bus drivers?
I don't think she was a driver. She was an aide.
Okay.
She was an attendant.
Any other discussion? Haven't heard none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Next grouping is items C through N as presented.
Okay, so if I can get a motion for C through N, please.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, David. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Julie. Is there any discussion? Okay, having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. So N went all the way to there. So we're to finance. Mr. Colucci.
Under finance, we have one item, and that is to accept the proposal from PAC Associates for the installation of doors for the school-based health center
Great, thank you.
in the amount of $79,000.
All right. Is there a motion for item A?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Tom. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Julie. Any discussion? Okay, having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Is there anybody opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
All right, Michael, student representative.
I don't have anything today.
All right, well, thank you, Michael. Items from the board. Sean.
Yeah. I just have to, this is my first year going through the budget process. But I really, I've learned a lot. I know maybe Julie and Kristen, we've all learned a lot. And I really have to recognize the process and something that was talked about earlier and hope that our whole community can recognize this, that this process was started, a little bit late with Ray coming in as our new superintendent and then Pete coming on board. But from the very beginning, even in the earlier meeting, Ray mentioned that he started listening in his interviewing process to what the needs and priorities of our community was. And I think that in itself was a great start for us. After that, he went to work quickly identifying the internal needs of our school district, and then Pete came on board to help him with this. And this all was flowing, and all we started to hear about as a board was student focused, student focused, student focused. And then beyond that, it was maintaining program. And then again, in parallel, while all of this is happening, we're starting these conversations with our community and with our stakeholders on the long-term vision of where our district is going. So this isn't 24, 25. That's not what this process, a lot of things were happening in parallel to one another to end up in the same place of sustainability and being secure with what we could offer to our Oswego community, especially the students and the staff. So I just see all of these things working together, and they were led by our new superintendent, and I think it's a grind. I think it's a lot, and we've learned a lot. And then the last piece is paying attention to what might come. The state aid formula and where are we going. It's not just for this year, but for 3 and 4 years down the road so that the school district is in a good place. And like I said a couple meetings ago, in Oswego County and in Onondaga County, they're making tough decisions that we didn't have to make. So, in the availability that Ray, provides to our, going to the Rotaries, going throughout our community to explain this whole process, where we ended up. I don't mean to go on a rant, but I think it's impressive. And I, as a board member, I back this, and I'm very confident in what you and Pete and everybody that you went to put together. And I really do hope that our Oswego community goes out to support the vote. Support what we're doing, because a lot of thought and strategy was put behind it. So I just wanted to take a couple minutes to commend you and Pete on what you've put into this. So I very much appreciate it.
Thank you, Sean. Other board members?
Who knew? I just want to second what Sean said and echo that sentiment. I think it's been a great process, and you're thrown into the middle of it, and I really appreciate everything you've done and communicating it and helping guide us in the direction we're headed. So thank you as well. I had just a couple things. I was able to go over to Fitzhugh Park for their carnival. It didn't make it into their highlight, which was a lot of fun, and it was really well attended. It's a great fundraiser for them. And they did face painting and football throwing and all sorts of games and working with Legos. There's a lot of teacher participation, a lot of students and families, but the highlight was the dunking, well, not the dunking booth per se, but a bucket booth for the principal, and that line went all the way down and around the building, which was awesome. So a great job over at Fitzhugh. And I wanted to say shout out also during the Red Cross and the families taken care of over at Layton School. A yeoman's job. We got a great thank you letter from the Red Cross and wanted to echo that to the staff, everybody that supported that. And it was really nice to integrate and be able to help the community and be here for them. So again, thank you to everyone involved for that. And then finally, it is Teacher Appreciation Week, and I just want to reflect back on the retirees. Thank you very much for the time that you've given to this district and community and of your life, and to the effect that you have on all the students going forward. We appreciate that, and we appreciate all the new teachers coming in and all the ones that we have right now. So thank you much.
Great. Thank you, Tom. Other board members? All right, I had two. One of them was Teacher Appreciation Week. Thanks, Tom. No, it's fine. You can't say it enough. We appreciate all of our teachers. Thank you very much. My second one is an appreciation of my own for a fellow board member. Every year, the Central New York School Board Association hands out a Board Member of Achievement Award. And this year, the honor has gone to our very own Tom Chiappa. So I'd like to throw that recognition out as well. Congratulations, Tom. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
It'll be a nice reception. All the board has been invited. Okay, anything else from board members? I usually try to go last. Okay, there is a need for executive session for the purposes of the medical, financial, credit, or employment history of a particular person or corporation. There will be a need for a vote as part of this, so Diane, we ask that you please stick around. After exec, we will reconvene the regular meeting to have our formal vote, and then we will go back into executive for a similar purpose, but not a vote. Okay? So, is there a motion to move to executive, please?
I'll make it.
Thank you, David. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Tom. All those in favor?
Aye.
Is there anybody opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Have a good evening. Don't dump an assignment and say I want it today. I'm sorry. He's got that one out of the way. Okay, so I just motion for the resolution, right? Okay. Ready to go live? All right. Thanks, Matt. Okay, welcome back, everybody. We're back to our regular meeting now, and I have a resolution here. I'm going to ask for a motion in a second after I read it. Whereas Section 75 of the Civil Service Law provides for the bringing of disciplinary charges against certain civil service employees and for suspension pending the determination of such charges, and whereas the superintendent of schools has preferred disciplinary charges against an employee who is entitled to the protections of Section 75 in the Civil Service Law, and the board has discussed such employee and such charges in executive session, and whereas it appears that disciplinary action against said employee may be warranted. Now therefore may be it resolved by the Board of Education of Oswego City School District as follows. Section 71, John Trela is appointed as the hearing officer to conduct the hearing and to prepare findings of facts and recommendations as the penalty, and to report such findings and recommendations to the Board of Education at the conclusion of the hearing in accordance with Section 75 of the Civil Service Law. Section 2, the Board of Education hereby authorizes the superintendent and the school attorneys to make all necessary arrangements for the hearing. The hearing should move forward as expeditiously as possible. Section 3, this resolution shall take effect immediately. So if I can ask for a motion, please.
I'll move it.
Thank you, Sean. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Tom. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. So now can I get a motion to return to executive session for the reasons described before?
Move.
Thank you, Kristen. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Tom. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you. Now have a good evening, everybody.